most people do. Yeah. Okay, so welcome to middleport. What I'm going to do, obviously, we're going to take on a tour around about quarter of it, but what I'm going to do is explain how the bottle ovens used to work. This is how they used to fire the ware back in the day, if you like, using these coal-fired ovens. If you look at the picture at the back there, that's how the factory used to look in 1888 when the factory actually opened. We think that photograph was taken about the 1920s, when it had 7 of these bottle ovens. Bottle ovens were coal-fired, and in its day, Stoke-on-Trent had 2,000 of these, very, very dirty, kicking out black, acrid smoke all day. So you can imagine the air around Stoke-on-Trent was pretty foul. There was this constant fall of pollution that sat over the city all the time, with these things kicking out black, acrid smoke. Very, very dirty, very, very smelly, and actually very, very inefficient, only about 10% efficient. Something like about 90% of the energy used to go up to the chimney. So that was the first problem, the fact that they were very, very dirty. What they had to do is they had to put the ware into something before they could put it into the bottle oven, because otherwise it would have just blackened the ware. So they used to put them in these things. These are called saggers, these things, and it's just like a rough earthenware container that they used to put the ware in before they put it into the ovens. So there was an whole industry involved in actually making these saggers. Because they didn't used to last very long, they used to crack and break, they were quite coarse things. They had a local clay, and it used to start with that thing over there. You see that like ring over there? They used to throw a piece of clay down on there, and then bat it flat with this flat hammer called a maul, actually bat it flat. And that used to make the base of the sagger. That guy was called the sagger maker's bottom knocker. That was his job. Okay. So what do you do for a living? I'm the sagger maker's bottom knocker. You'll probably get locked up for it today, but that was his job. There was another guy called a frame maker, and he would put clay down on a table like this, bat it flat, and then cut it into strips. Put the strips around the former, and then pick the frame up, put the frame down onto the base, and then smooth the bottom, smooth the seam, and you'd then have the rough shape of the sagger. This would then be fired, roughly fired, just salt glazed, so literally put into the oven and then salt thrown onto it to glaze it, and then got the rough shape of the sagger. So at this point then it was then usable. What they would do is they would fill it right up to the top with ware, so they would put the plates and the cups and that inside in, and then they would fill it, all of the little crevices and all the gaps between the ware, they would fill with a powder called alumina powder, which is actually an aluminium oxide. Or kind of sand, if you like, fill it right up to the top. They would then pick this thing up. Now, you can imagine the weight of this, filled with ware, filled with powder right up to the top. They would pick it up and put it onto their heads. Okay? So they would balance it onto the heads, and then it would walk into the kiln with this thing balanced on top of the heads. They used to wear a flat cap with a ring inside called a donut, which is just like a leather ring, just to protect the top of the heads. So these were the sagger makers, alright, these were the saggers. Because they're taking the oven, which is down here. I see some of you have found it already. I see, so you can see, when you see it from the outside, all you see is this bottle shape. It looks like a beehive, if you like, kind of shape. And a lot of people think that that's actually the kiln. And you can now see that it isn't. It's in two halves. This is actually the kiln. And that bottle shape that you see on the outside is known as the hovel. And really it's just designed as a huge chimney. It's designed so it will pull the smoke away from the ware. Because they don't want the smoke going into the kiln, because again it would blacken the ware. So it's just a huge chimney. They would bring all the saggers in. This void here would be completely filled, about 2,000 saggers, and it would take them about 3 days to actually fill it up. At the end of the 3 days, this would be bricked up, and it would be bricked up with a temporary brickwork called saggers. And then what they would do is they would start the fires all around the outside. Each one of these openings that you can see, that's lit up, going all the way around the kiln, is actually one of the fires. So there would be guys working down there actually stoking. They would be manually stoking the coal in there. Now you can imagine it. Imagine the coal dust, the soot, the smoke. They're actually working in a chimney, if you like. The heat from this thing's going to get up to 1300 degrees. So terrible working conditions. They would use a lot. They would lose a lot of fluids because they were sweating that much. So they used to drink. Now the local water at the time wasn't very sanitary, so they would drink beer. And believe it or not, they had an allowance of 8 gallons of beer. Sorry, 3 gallons of beer. Over the 3 days, so that's like 8 pints of beer per day. There would be a young lad called a runner, and he would run back and forth to the pub, bringing them beer to keep them hydrated. Now we all know that nowadays beer is probably the worst thing you can do to hydrate yourself, but in those days they used to use it to hydrate themselves. I was speaking to a fireman fairly recently, and he said that he would work here for 3 days. When they actually did the firing would last 3 days, and they would actually live on site. They wouldn't go home for those 3 days. They would stay here for a long time. And he would say he would do his 3-day shift. He would go home at the end of the shift stone cold sober, even though he'd been drinking all this beer, because he was just losing it all the fluid. Don't know what he did to his liver, but that was what they used to think. So if you want to go inside.
Das ist alles für den
It would be very hot. I mean, it wouldn't be direct heat, because the heat is concentrated in here, but it would be hot. Seriously hot, yeah. I mean, they used to wear virtually shirt off, yeah. They would wear just shorts or something like that. Although the whole idea of it really is it's designed so that there's like a backdraft coming in, so there is a draft coming in from underneath to actually pull the smoke outside. So in some days actually it'd be quite cold. If it was a winter's day, it would be quite cold in there, even though this would be red hot in here. Yeah? It used to vary. So as I say, they would bring the saggers in here. The saggers are laid in concentric circles all the way around, and they would be stacked right up to, you can just see where that ridge is at the top there, right up to that ridge at the top. This whole area would be full of saggers. They were notoriously inefficient, much hotter around the outside than they were around the inside. So the coarser wear would go around the outside, and the more delicate wear would actually go around the inside, because they were much hotter on the outside. So the stuff had to be placed in here in a very specific sequence. The guy that was in charge of that was called the cod placer. Nothing to do with fish. He was like the head placer, if you like, that could put the stuff in here. They control the temperature. You see the openings in the roof. There would be baffles behind those openings with a chain that used to come down the outside of the kiln. If it got too hot in here, what they could do is open the baffle, open the dampers, and allow some of the air to escape out up through the holes. If it got too cool in here, they would close the dampers and stoke up the fires. So everything really, the enemy of the firemen, if you like, was anything that cooled the kiln down. So like in the winter weather, they would have to work a lot harder because they would be doing a lot more stoking. They'd have to be literally stoking all day. Whereas in the summer, where it would retain heat a little bit more, they had a little bit of an easier life. It wasn't quite as difficult to actually do. At the end of the 3 days, they would break down the temporary brickwork here, the claddings here. There would be a great outrush of hot air come out, and then he would actually come in and draw the kiln or empty the kiln. You would think they would allow it to cool down. Actually they didn't. It would come in when it was still red hot in here, really hot. And what they used to do, they'd strip down to the waist, they would put about 4 layers of clothing on, sacks over the head, sacks over the arms, and then they would hose one another down. So they would come in here soaking wet, pick up the saggers and walk out with steam coming off them. Yeah. Terrible working conditions. This place was close to hell probably working in here.
Why not wait?
Sorry?
Why not wait?
It was all about efficiency really. These were coal-fired, very, very inefficient. And if they allowed them to cool down, it would take that much more coal to get them back up to temperature again. So it was really the pottery owners. They didn't want to waste the heat. So they would literally empty this and then instantly start filling it again. Because they never really completely cooled down. The whole idea really was to get the stuff out, get the next lot in, because they didn't want them to cool down. So it was the factory owners being stingy, if you like, so yeah, really the people that worked in here, they would be lucky to see the 40th birthday. They would be an old man at 40. But we're talking industrial England, yeah? A lot of the industries were like this. Life was cheap, if you like. Everybody was after work. And there would be a queue outside the works, looking for work. And basically, if you weren't prepared to put up with these conditions, well, they'd just go and take the next person in line. So there's a bottle covers. There was 2,000. There's only 47 left in Stoke-on-Trent. All historical monuments, all of the preservation orders are just left. And this one is a biscuit oven. Pottery goes through 2 firings, biscuit firing and a gloss firing, which you'll see when you go to the factory. And this one was a biscuit oven. Yeah, so this was like the first firing.
So when did they stop using these cold ones?
Okay, it really started to go into decline in about the 1940s. In the 1940s, they brought out a new way of firing in the world called tunnel kilns. The tunnel kilns were gas fired, much more efficient. And because these were so inefficient, and so dirty, instantly they started to disappear. What really killed them off in 1956, there was a Clean Air Act here, and that stopped coal firing. From then on, they stopped coal firing. So certainly by the 60s, they all quit.
But these are jobs that are to
Thank you very much. I'll see you in about half an hour.
We'll see you. Fabulous. Thank you.